Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and this is the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. Welcome. For those of you who don't know, my name is Rich, and I run and operate the Hard Compound, one-stop shop for all things motorsport: four wheels, two wheels, IndyCar, NASCAR, F1, BTCC, World Touring Cars, rallying, bikes, and everything in between. We do 3 or 4 posts a day on our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages, and we do race reviews, race previews. Any livery unveils, breaking news, anything we can shake a stick at, really. So do give us a follow: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and also on YouTube, where live chats such as this one are broadcast. We've only got 1 hour this evening, so we need to be very, very quick. I'm just going to rattle through some of the guests that we've had on, but firstly, I'll tell you where to find them all. On Facebook, they're in the video section. They are on Twitter, on our feed, just scroll down, and on YouTube, they are in the live section. So lots of great interviews and content for you. And as I said, we've had some fantastic drivers and riders from across the motorsport spectrum, past and present. Just a few names if you're a British touring car fan or fan of touring cars in general. We've spoken with the likes of Mr. Jason Plato, with Frank Sittner, Rob Gravitt, Jerry Marnie, Fabrizio Giovanardi, Tom Coronel, Andy Prio, Gabriele Tarquini, Matt Neal, and a lot of the current grid as well. And if you like your F1 sports car, IndyCar, that kind of a thing, we've spoken with the likes of Mr. Mario Andretti and Jackie Ix, which were absolute privileges. And we've spoken with the likes of Mr. Karen Chandhok. We've spoken with Eddie Cheever, Emanuele Pirro, Mark Blundell, David Brabham, Derek Warwick, Stefan Johansson, Scott Pruitt, Alex Palou, J.R. Hildebrand, Brian Herter, Mark Sura, Mika Salo, Roberto Guerrero, many fantastic guests, including Will Power as well. So if you like the sound of those, do go and check them out, but don't do it just yet, because we have got a fantastic guest joining us this evening. Young lady from the UK, who's made a terrific career for herself over in the States, currently in the IMSA series, and will be racing in the Indy 500 in 1 month's time, hence the Indy 500 t-shirt. She's currently driving, so we are going to bring her in now. This is going to be an interesting one because she's in the car, and she's got her doggy with her as well, which is lovely. So without any further ado, please join me in extending a very, very warm welcome to Katherine Legge.
Hello, that was a lovely intro for me and Barley, who's obviously running around behind me. Thank you for that.
No, that's all right. Thank you very much for squeezing the Hard Compound into your busy schedule. Obviously, you're on the road, so thank you very much for joining us and for bringing us a special guest as well.
Yeah, no worries. Sorry about being on the road, but I was at Barber, and then I'm just about to hit the car in front of me. Sorry about that. I was at Barber, and then obviously it gets a bit late in the UK when it's time for me, so hence I'm in the car. But you have my full attention. I shouldn't really say that, should I? You have most of my attention.
We have all the attention that is needed. That's yes. But, fantastic. Well, firstly, thank you very, very much for coming and doing this. Very much appreciated. I know how busy you are. And it sounds like you've had a far more fun day than most of us have out at Barber. You've been out in the two-seater, haven't you?
I have. I've been driving the two-seater for my IndyCar duties, which is really cool, really fun.
Fantastic. Good stuff. We'll come to IndyCar very shortly because, as I mentioned, there's the small matter of a small 500 race coming up. Yeah, folks, if you want to put any questions or comments in the comment section, we will do our best to come to them. As I said there, we only have about an hour this afternoon. So we've got a lot to squeeze in. So let's get cracking. Basically, Katherine, where did it all start for you, the interest in motorsport? Because I know roughly where you're from, and it's not exactly a motorsport hub, is it?
Yeah, well, it kind of is, if you think about it. So I'm from originally, obviously, British, around the Hazelmere area. For those of you who don't know where that is, it's the Surrey-West Sussex border. It's remarkably close, though, to, like, Woking and Aldershot and, like, the likes of Carlin and McLaren and a bunch of really good teams. So I guess it kind of is. I mean, anywhere in England is very much in the motorsport realm, right? Like, it's the world center of racing. I know Daytona claims that they're the world center of racing. I dispute that every time.
Questionable.
Questionable, exactly. So I started racing go-karts. Actually, we were on holiday in Spain, and my dad and my uncle. The roads around here are really bad, so I apologize for that. Had to go on the fun carts, and I wasn't allowed because I was too small. I was 9, and we came back to England, and in the local paper there was an advert for our local go-kart track, which was Blackbush near Camberley. And so, long story short, my dad and I went over there because I was daddy's little girl, and I was like anything that he wanted to do, I wanted to join, and I loved anything adrenaline junkie wise. Like, I wanted to go fast and jump off tall things and climb trees and do fun things. So I was a bit of a tomboy. Sometimes I think I was the son that my dad never had. And so he started racing at Blackbush, bought a car, met some folks that we became friendly with, and then I nagged him so much that for Christmas that year when I was 9, he bought me a cadet go-kart and did a few races of both of us driving, and then he actually stopped because he thought, okay, well, what happens if anything happens to me? Katherine's going to be stuck at the racetrack, and I was pretty good at it, and so he focused on my racing, and for the next 10 years we drove across England, come rain or shine or snow sometimes, and like just kind of snowballed from there. Like, we had no interest in Formula One or any kind of racing until that point, and then you start watching it and you start figuring out who people are and what's what, and so it was kind of born. It wasn't a family thing before that.
Right, you kind of started the ball rolling, and your family just kept pushing it, I suppose. And I guess, I'm not going to say it, but we are of very similar age. There's only about 6 months between us, so we're probably into F1 at the same time, which is great. You went karting, and I guess you had a bit of success racing and all that kind of thing. When did you first decide to make this switch up to like Formula Ford and that kind of, well, just the general car thing?
I mean, it wasn't really a conscious decision per se, because we never had the money to plan out, okay, this is how I'm going to get to F1. I wanted to be a Formula One driver, but we didn't have any background in racing. We didn't know what we were doing, didn't really have any money. My dad gave up smoking to be able to afford go-kart tires, so I was very lucky. My parents gave me everything that they did, and they gave me the start in life that has enabled me to do this. But we didn't have multi-millions to spend doing Formula Ford and then Formula 3 and then kind of going up that route. So kind of fell into it. We started running our own Formula Ford, and then just did bits and pieces here and there in deals that I could get or sponsorship that I could put together. I mean, I was going around age 18-ish. I was going around local, like, I don't know what you call it, the industrial estates that they have there, yeah, with my CV. Like, hey, can you sponsor me? Can you give me £5,000, please? So it was, basically taking whatever opportunity that I could get, and that's really been the story of my career. I drove the car, we nicknamed it the car of almost certain death. Was the F3 car I drove at Rockingham that tried to kill me. And so, yeah, just been kind of doing what I could to get to where I could, and my career never really took off, even though I got pole at Alton Park, and I thought, okay, people are going to know that I'm good now, and they're going to give me a ride, or something's going to happen. Well, it doesn't quite happen like that, does it? Unfortunately, if only it did. No. And so my first real opportunity came at the hands of Kevin Kalkoven when I did Atlantics, and I raced for Polestar, who were absolute stars, and taught me everything I know about racing and gave me the springboard to start my career. So it really was a late start. I was 25 by the time I'd done my first full season, and that was Atlantics, and I'd never driven anything quite as powerful or anything like that. For those of you who are younger than we are, that's the equivalent of Indy Lights now.
Yeah.
So kind of came to it in a roundabout manner, but at least I got there in the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I want to touch on a couple of things. I mean, you were the first woman to achieve a pole in a Formula Ford Z-Tech race. I guess that was the open pole. That's a cool thing to have. Again, kind of catching the eye.
Yeah, but here's the deal. So yes, it looks cool on your CV, and you got to use it when you can, because being female goes against you enough that like saying those things is cool. But I was never of the ilk or opinion that it mattered whether I was male or female, right?
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
So yes, it's a great thing to have, to be a first at doing something, and yes, in some respects it's trickier being female in a male-dominated racing world, but in other respects I just wanted to get pole, and I wanted to win races because I wanted to be the best race car driver that I could be. I gave less than zero monkeys about being the fastest girl, and I think that's important to point out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there'll be many people that see this that would absolutely agree with that. Be the best version of yourself regardless of gender. And obviously you made this, you moved up through the Formula Renault and won the VRDC, first one between the VRDC Rising Star accolade, switched to Fortec Motorsport, all that kind of stuff. But a turning point, I mean, obviously I guess the funding had run out to a degree and doors were closing with perhaps regards to F1. You mentioned Kevin Kalkhoven, sorry. God bless him. You had an interview with him. It was at Cosworth. I really want to hear this story if you can tell it, because I spoke with Jason Prater, the British Touring Cars, and he basically went to Frank Williams and didn't take no for an answer. He kept getting shooed away, and yours was quite a similar story, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I think that when you get older and you get complacent and you aren't hungry, or like you see it with a lot of kids these days too, it's too easy, right? Like their families just pay for them to go through the ranks and they never have to like dig really deep and suffer in the way that obviously Jason and I did, because it's not easy doing those things, right? Like everybody listening is probably thinking, oh, that's a cool thing to do, but let me tell you, it takes every ounce of guts that you have. I would rather drive at 240 miles an hour at Indy than do that again. And what happened was,
push it, yeah.
What happened was I came over to the States in 2004 and I did 3 races. It was the Can-Am Cup in a Formula Renault. And my dad said, okay, if you can put some money together, I'll match it. And we'll go and do these 3 races. And I think it cost us about 35 grand at the time.
Wow.
And so I'd saved up. I was working at Silverstone, and I'd saved up some money. And my dad's luckily put some money in, and went over to do this. One of the races was supposed to be at Vancouver, and it got cancelled and moved to, I can't remember where actually. I want to say it was not in Canada anymore, and then it became like the Can-Am thing was not a thing. But anyway, right. my parents still had airline tickets to go to Vancouver, and the IndyCar race was still on, and they met Mickey O'Connor, who ran and owned the Indy Lights Atlantic Series at that time. So, long story short, my dad said, my daughter's a driver and she's doing a couple of Formula Renault races over here at the moment. A few people have come over to the States, and I feel like there's probably more opportunities over here. Dan Welder being prime example. And what does she have to do to get an opportunity? Like, what do you suggest? Is there anybody she should meet? Is there, basically, his phone needs to cool down. You're too hot.
I've never been told that.
Radar detector. So basically, if it does it again, I'll hold it in front of the blower thing. But it is quite warm over here, so there is that. It's gone up to 70 now. Just saying.
Great. Thanks.
So anyway, so she said that Kevin Kalkhoven would be in England to buy Cosworth from Ford.
Right.
So my dad said, you should meet Kevin Kalkoven. And I'm like, okay, this guy's like an uber successful multi-millionaire businessman. And I'm going to say, what now? Like, he said, well, print off a copy of your CV and just tell him who you are and what you want to do. And like, you don't get anywhere unless you try, which is 100% right.
Of course.
So printed off a copy of my CV. I think I borrowed like a business suit of somebody because I didn't have one. And I drove to Cosworth and I go into the lobby and I say, hi, Kevin Kalkoven, please. And the lady was like, are you all there mentally? Like, what's wrong with you?
Really?
No, of course you can't see Kevin Kalkoven. He's on a really important business trip buying Cosworth and he's in back-to-back meetings and like, no. And I said, okay, I'll sit in the lobby and I'll wait for him to kind of come out for lunch or do something, and then I'll just hand him this because I just want to make sure that this gets to him in his hands. I'll leave it with you, but you know, I just want to shake his hand and say hi, and so he has a name to the face and all the things. Here, I'm gonna hold you. Hold on a second. All right, I'm gonna hold you in front of the fan. Can you still see me? So, his daughter and his fiance at the time, who he subsequently married, Kim, and Kirsty is his daughter. They came out to reception to see who this crazy lady was that was sitting there, and basically said, "Okay, we will tell Dad that you were here and see if there's anything he can do." And so I said, okay, thank you very much. I'll just hang out and wait and see if he comes through. And so they went and got him, and he came in and he said, hello, young lady. My daughter's told me a little bit about you, and then basically left. And I thought, okay, well, that was a waste of time. And I said, thank you very much for their time. But turned out that Kim and Kirsty had obviously worked on Kevin a little bit and said, okay, there's something special about this girl to come here and do that, because that's got to be incredibly hard, and you know, she must really want it. So I got a phone call the next day. Well, first of all, I called my dad on the way home, right, because this is back in the days of me and my Vauxhall Nova.
Yes.
Calling my dad like literally in tears, going, Daddy, he hated me and it's all a waste of time and I'm never going to do this and I should have paid more attention in school.
Oh, no.
And but it was interesting, right? And so then what happened? So then, like the next day or a day later, I got a phone call from Jim Griffith from Polestar saying, Kevin Kalkoven wants us to test you. Can you be in Phoenix by the end of the week or something like that? And I was thinking, well, yeah, absolutely, I'll be in Phoenix at the end of the week. I don't really know how I'm going to get there. So I called my dad and I'm like, hey, need a flight to America. Can you help me with that? Apparently Kevin wants...
By the way, Dad, we're going to...
We're going to Phoenix. No, it's just me. Well, so also around the same time, I had missed out on a Indy Lights ride with Katherine Nunn. So Mo Nunn was a really famous engineer back in the day and team owner in IndyCar. And his wife was starting...
Ensign, I think it was, wasn't it? Is it Ensign? One of the F1 teams back in the 80s, he was with Ensign and Theodore or someone, wasn't he? I can't remember. Anyway.
I don't know. And so I went and I did the same thing. So they were taking applications from girl drivers, and it was Lynn St. James who was helping out, and I still give her grief for this to this day, is that they chose, I don't know, it was like 15 girls or 12 or 15. There was a lot of young ladies to go do this test, and I wasn't chosen, and I was like super miffed about this. I'm like, don't they know that I'm like the best person for the job? Like, what do Americans not know what's going on in the rest of the world? And How dare they? Like, I literally was flabbergasted. Like, why wouldn't I have been chosen? And so I said to Lynn, okay, I'm going to turn up, and I'll I'll just watch, and I'll learn, and I'll meet the people, and I'll bring my helmet just in case. And so she's like, yeah, whatever, Catherine. I don't know who you are. I don't care. Um, so that was the first time I said, Daddy, I need a flight ticket to America. And I owed my dad a lot of money by this point. And I turned up at, I think it was Texas Motor Speedway. I can't remember. I know it was Texas because I remember getting off the plane thinking, wow, people live here. It's like 100 degrees and everything's massive and it's really cool, but this is crazy, like not having experienced anything like it. And anyway, I got chatting with the people there, and I was like, please just give me 5 laps in the car. Just give me 10 laps in the car. Just put me in the car and I will show you what I'm made of. And I came all this way. Please, 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 just give me this chance. And so they were all doing a press conference at lunchtime, and they put me in the car at lunchtime, and I went out and I did a really good job, and they stopped their press conference, and then they basically sent a bunch of the other girls home, and there was just me and this one other Sarah McCune, and they were like, okay, we found our 2 drivers. So from having not even been included on the test, excuse me, I got this ride, which then subsequently fell through, so I was back to square one, right? And so that's when I did the Kevin thing, and then that's when Jim said, okay, Kevin wants us to test you. And so long story short, Daddy, can I have another plane ticket, please? And I turned up in Phoenix this time, and I did a good job, I guess. I mean, yeah, I was really nice to meet the team. It was really cool. It was Firebird. It was really cool to drive this big burly Atlantic car, of which I'd never driven anything like
Wow.
it. And I did a good job because he obviously gave me a good report. And then he said, dead end. I went wrong somewhere. He said Kevin Kalkoven wants to give you the first 6 races. It's like, oh my goodness, I've made it! Like, I'm gonna
Wow.
do the first 6 races in in a in a Atlantic car, Indy Lights car. So I go to Long Beach for the first race, and and I crashed in qualifying. Right, stuck it in the wall pretty bad,
Eek.
and so I'm thinking, okay, this is not a great start. I've got 6 races. I better do something pretty spectacular here.
And
So
you did.
I won the race,
Yeah,
and
as you
Kevin
do.
and everybody, as you do, from getting Dr. Lap and being P last. Kevin gave me the rest of
Wow.
the season at that point, and
So
yeah, the
it
rest
was
is
after that
history. I
first
won
race.
3 more races.
It was
Yeah,
after the first race that you did it.
yeah, it was after that first race, and so
Wow.
I won like 3 more races. I finished 3rd in the championship actually because I had some bad ones as well. It's my first full season in racing, so didn't really, know too much. So
Yeah.
fast forward the year, and I'd had some good results, some bad results. Then at the end of that year, because of the promise that I showed, I would say, because it was like still pretty raw, I got to test the champ car, and he said, okay, young lady, you have to be as fast as the boys. You can't be slower than. You don't have to be faster than them, but you have to be as quick as them, and
On the
you'll get the
pace.
ride.
Yeah.
And I tested
Wow.
the F1 car for Paul Stoddard, who was
Yeah.
partnered with Kevin.
Which was the
And so
last ever Minardi, wasn't it? It was
Minardi,
the last ever
yeah,
Minardi before it came Toro Rosso. That's kind of cool.
yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, I got to do a lot of really cool stuff, and then I got the chance to race Champ Car the next year. Well, I remember doing the test. I'm out there and I've got my new tire run, and I'm looking at Ryan Dial, Ryan Hunter Ray. There was another Ryan Briscoe, Like there was a bunch of really strong drivers, and so I knew what I had to do time wise. And I remember thinking, I mean, they were big, heavy, burly cars, right? And I'd been doing Atlantics and I was strong, but I was not prepared for how brutal they were. So I was in the ladies' bathroom to the Sebring, which is not a nice place to be. Like eating power bars, drinking Gatorade, trying to like summon enough strength and to do a new tire run because it was so heavy. And anyway, I did it, and I guess I was quick enough to get the job. I didn't. There was a lot of humming and ahhing about whether I should do another year in Atlantics, and I probably should have. But also, you know, IndyCar had Danica at the time, so there was a big push to even the playing field. We all need to have a girl in our, which was 10 years ahead of what's going on now, which is interesting. America being ahead of the curve there. And so, yeah, I got to race Champ Car. I had some half decent results in my first year with PKB. And then I did second year with Dale. And then IndyCar and Champ Car merged. So didn't really get to kind of live up my full IndyCar potential at that point. I went back and I raced DTM with Audi for 3 years before coming back to the States because I missed it and I wanted it to be equal opportunity and I wanted to do IndyCar again. And so I came back and I did IndyCar with Dragon, which was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. But it is what it is. And then made my way into sports cars. I've driven crikey Formula E. I did a couple of races. Oh, this is a good one. So Formula E happens, right? And I'm keen to be a part of it. And so I did the first couple of races with Amlin and Guri thinking this is going to be awesome. And then it wasn't so awesome because it was a new series and we had to switch cars and other things. So I was like, yeah, this isn't going anywhere. This is going to be a flash in the pan. This is not going to be. Look at it now. Like I could have been making a small fortune driving Formula E. But I bailed in favor of IMSA. I was like, I've got IMSA clashes, so I can't do all of them. So I didn't do many of those. And then a few years later, Bobby Rahal calls me and says, "Do you want to drive in the Formula E that's going to be like the GT version, the Jaguar I-Pace?" I'm like, yes, I missed the boat the first time around. I'm definitely doing this. This is going to be awesome, and it's going to turn into Formula E. And it lasted a year. So I completely don't trust me when it comes to picking lines in supermarkets as well. Like I'm terrible at it. So
the other one,
the other one always. So yeah, I drove some NASCAR races. What else have I done? I've done a bit of everything. Like I seriously think I have one of the most diverse careers in motorsport, honestly.
Which is pretty much part of the reason why I wanted to get you on and have a chat about all these little bits and pieces. We're gonna have to handpick all the bits and pieces, but you've done loads. I just want to mention one thing actually. 2006, you did a karting endurance race called the Robopong.com 200, and I just want to say Robopong because I've never said that on a live chat before. What a cool!
I did that. I did that with Sarah Fisher. And funny story. To see the stories about everything. It was really cool, but I broke my ribs because go-karts can be brutal, right? And there's a lot of curves and I think we did really well, but I had to leave right before the end because I had to fly to Surfers Paradise to do the Champ Car race. So I flew with broken ribs and I had to do the Surfers Paradise, which again is really brutal, and you hit a bunch of curves with broken ribs. So, well, they weren't broken, they were separated. But I was like, it really hurts. I don't know if I'm okay. But I also did Mexico City with a broken thumb for 2 hours and nobody believed me. So I think I have a high pain threshold.
Clearly. Goodness me. That's unreal. Just want to do a very quick backtrack to your first sort of spell in IndyCar very quickly because, excuse me, one thing that where were we? You took 8th in the opener at Long Beach circuit. You seem to quite like.
6.
Sorry, 6.
Don't do me out of 2 positions here.
Yes, sorry. Yeah, it does say 6th. I don't know why I said 8th. I've got my contact lenses in. They're clearly useless. But one thing I did want to mention about was Was it Milwaukee on the Milwaukee Mile? Was that your
Milwaukee.
first ever oval race?
Yeah, it was. And I led it.
Wow.
I think I led it because of pit cycling. No, I don't think I like legit led it, but I probably thought I did at the time. But it was funny because I'd never done an oval race before, and I was driving for Jimmy Vassar, and Jimmy was like a god when it came to IndyCar ovals. And so I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
Jimmy, what do I do? Like, tell me how to go fast here. Do you know what he said to me? He said, "Stab and steer, baby, stab and steer." And I'm like, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, I have no idea. Like, yes, obviously I'm gonna stab and steer, but like, where do I turn? What do I do? How do I do? But the thing about ovals, the most
Go
important
forward
thing
and
that you
turn the
need
wheel.
to
It's not.
stab and steer. But I mean, no, he didn't tell me about the wind coming through the grandstand, so you got to be careful of, or the fact that you need to pee so you don't crash with a full bladder, or any of those things. No, stab and steer.
Jeez. No subtle nuances. Just floor it and turn. Amazing. Amazing. And
I mean,
very
it's pretty
quickly.
accurate if you think about it. It's the same as Texas, right? I just drove Texas in an IndyCar, and it's been a while. It's been like 10 years since I've been in one of those things.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking about it again. I'm like, well, what do you do? And like, literally, Jimmy's words are in my head, and it's like stab and steer. So that's what I did.
I just want to come to that very, very quickly this year. But I mean, you finished sixth, that first ever oval race. Brits, I think we're starting to get IndyCar a bit now. I mean, I've been pushing IndyCar for the last 35 odd years since I watched the 500 in '88 when Rick Mears won it. And what annoys me is people say, "Oh, it's just going around in circles. Ovals are easy," and I want to slap people when they say it. I want to because it's just not going around in circles. There's so much to factor in: the speed and the dirty air and the gusts of wind and the banking and all the other stuff that people don't understand. It's tough,
Yeah.
isn't it?
It's a different art form. It's a different sport almost. Like, yes, you've got 4 wheels in the steering wheel, and it's the same principles. But it's definitely more about timing. It's more about planning. It's more about strategy. You have to be a bit smarter because you can't just stove it down the inside. And if you do, you're going to create a big crash at one point, right? So it's about learning. It's just a different art form. It's the same with stock car racing, right? Like, everybody thinks that that's easy, but once you get into the nuances of it, it's really not. It's easy in that if you have a good car, you're a lot closer to the front. Like, I was having this discussion today at Barber with some people. Basically, the guys at the back are working 10 times harder than the guys at the front, because at that level, everybody's good, right? Like, okay, there's a discrepancy in how good sometimes, but they're all pretty decent drivers. And if you've got a good car, it's an easy day. If you've got a bad car, you're working twice as hard as the people at the front. So, moral to this story is, if you're with a good team and you've got a good car, then oval racing is a lot easier than if you're not. And if you're not, then it's a long day. And I know this because I have back-to-back comparisons with, I've done Indy twice. I did it first time with Dragon, and then I did it second time with Schmidt. And Schmidt gave me a great car. I didn't have any testing or anything on the run up to it, so it was not like typically ideal circumstances, but I will forever be grateful for him for showing me what a good car was like, because I was on this suffer bus the year before and I could not get to grips with it, and I felt like a wanker, honestly. But it wasn't me, it was the car. And when you have a good car, everything happens so much more slowly and so much easier. And so I think it's all about the team and the car and the people you surround yourself with, to be honest. Which is why I'm really grateful to getting to do it with RLLR, Rahal Lanigan Letterman Racing, this year, because like the preparation and the engineers and the car and everything is just, it's like a dream come true. It's not some last minute deal that gets thrown together and you don't know whether you're going to make it in the show or not. You know, it's proper, which,
yeah,
when you get those opportunities, means the world.
And they're a proper outfit. Obviously, Bobby Rahal, legend, you know, and Graham's not bad either, and Jack and all the Christian, they're pretty good. Thing is that the only thing I've got against you doing it this year is that I'm not going to be there, because I went last year. Finally, I've been wanting to go for ages. And obviously, having you and Jack in the same team, we'd have made a banner. We'd have had
Oh, that
Union
would have been
Jacks.
cool.
Turn 4, we were. We'd have had them up there. Jack and Katherine. We'd have done it. But
Jack and Cat, yeah, exactly.
yeah, J&K or yeah, but yeah. So we'll have to do it from the living room this year.
And honestly,
but
though, like those guys are awesome. So sometimes, especially being the girl, you go to a new race team and your teammates are less than thrilled about it, right?
Sure.
Oh God, I'm gonna go. And some of the team members are too. Honestly, I have not felt any of that here. Like all 3 of the drivers are awesome and they've been super helpful and super friendly, and I haven't felt like an outsider at all. And the same with the team and the team members. Like it's just been already an incredible experience. So I think it's just different. It just feels different this time around.
Yeah, good. Positive way, obviously, which is fantastic.
And we've got hobnobs.
Oh, deal clinched. That's a clincher. Absolute clincher. I wonder if Christian Lundgaard knows what that is. He probably was like, what?
He does now. Yeah, he does now.
He does now, does he? Good lad.
Yeah.
Just quickly, actually, I had a question here from like Simon Steele. He says, does Katherine feel she learns more when driving a bad car? Good question. You like that?
No, I absolutely don't, actually. You would think logically you would, but no, I learned the most from doing the development stuff that I've done.
Right.
So I developed the Acura NSX when it came over as a GT3 car. I developed the Delta Wing. So those are the 2 biggest development projects I've been involved in, which involves a lot of testing and a lot of developing every aspect of it. And I think Rahal are doing a lot of that this year too. I mean, the stuff they're doing is incredible, with regards to dampers and aero and all the things. But I never really was part of any of that until I did the Delta Wing and then subsequently the NSX. And I learned so much from doing those things that I think that's the benchmark, because you just go through test items and you not radar detector again. They're legal, don't worry, folks over here. Not that I speed, but I kind of do.
That wasn't the law.
Anyway, yeah, no. Mutation Brewing. That's an interesting name for a brewery.
Oh.
Yeah, weird. So no, driving a bad car is just a bad experience, and trust me, I know because I've driven enough of them.
So you'd rather be in a good one, obviously. But,
be in a good one, not learning anything. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just before we, excuse me, just before we park the IndyCar thing, you've probably spoken about Road America and the crash and all that. You've spoken about 1,000 times, and you're probably sick of it. I'm sorry. I'm going to ask you one more time. It kind of, people are very aware of it. People, I don't know. People seem to love a crash. I don't. Obviously, I'm sure you don't either. But I mean, it was. I mean, when we first saw it, everyone just thought, "Oh, that's not good.
Dead.
She's not going to come out of that if she goes." It didn't look good, especially with what had happened in the previous couple of years. We'd lost, some drivers, and unfortunately.
Yep.
What happened? I mean, I've seen the footage. You go over the brow and before you go right, and the bit of the wing flies off.
And the rear wing laminated.
Do you know what happened after that?
Yes. So the rear wing delaminated, basically pulled out of the end plate, the main plane. So you lose over 1,000 pounds of downforce, right? So
Jeez.
Imagine the force of 1,000 pounds pushing you into the tarmac. That's not there anymore. And when you've got so many horsepower, the rear wheels just light up and you go so much faster. So the thing that I noticed first was like somebody had put a rocket up my ass, and I didn't know why, but I was going so much quicker. And then I get to the kink, and obviously my brain hasn't twigged what's going on. And so I turned in, and it just switched ends and climbed the fence, and I didn't really know what was happening, if I'm honest. I do remember taking my hands off the wheel. I remember seeing the engine fly along the fence as I'm doing cartwheels in a different kind of like area, and I remember thinking that was great because it was ethanol at the time, and those fires you don't see, and they're really
Invisible flame,
scary. And
isn't
so
it? Yeah.
the biggest fear is being in a fire that you can't see, or just being in a fire, at all, really. And so remember remember that happening, and then I started hitting my head on the ground as it was cartwheeling, and that at that point I thought, okay, I'm done. That's me done. Like, if I'm hitting my
Wow.
head, I'm gonna break my neck, and I'm basically dead. And I don't remember being emotional about it. It was just very matter of fact. Well, this is how it ends. Like, okay then. Which is very, very strange thing to say or feel as well, actually. And so
Sure.
I land upside down, and I'm like, holy moly, I'm okay. This what? How am I okay to start with? And also then, like, great, I'm hanging upside down in the harness, which is less than comfortable. So the safety crew arrive. Well, first of all, I'm an idiot, so I go for the radio button. I'm like, radio check. I'm okay. Of course, the radio's nowhere to be seen because the whole car is completely disintegrated.
Yeah, it's like the radio in the
Um,
trees. Yeah.
the safety crew, though, were phenomenal. So they were on track by the time my wreck had come to a stop. Right? Comprehend that, like, how they got out so quickly. So anyway,
Wow.
I'm hanging upside down. They're to me within seconds. I swear to God, it wasn't even minutes.
Shit.
Yeah, really cool. And then what happened? Oh, so they let me out the car, and I'm like, tell my dad I'm okay, because my dad comes to most of my races, and he was
Right.
there. And I wanted him to know that I was okay because it was a big wreck. So they're like, yeah, okay, we'll tell him that you're okay. And they didn't. They didn't radio in like a code or anything because they didn't know whether I was okay or not, because the adrenaline, once you got so much adrenaline, it's tough to know whether you are okay and the adrenaline's just keeping you going, or whether what's going on. So anyway, um, they let me out, they scoop me up, they take me to the med center, and I see my dad, and I never seen my dad cry. Like, my dad's manly, and he cried, and he was like, Catherine, for 15 minutes I didn't know whether you were dead or alive. I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna start crying now too, because that's got to be like,
No,
even
you're
thinking about
feeling.
it now, that's the worst feeling as a parent, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how did I put my dad through this? So then we
yeah.
had like a little chat, like, listen, if I die doing this, it's what I love to do. I'm perfectly aware of the risks. It's not your fault or responsibility. He's like, I got you into racing. I'm like, I love it. I want to do this. I know the risks. So it was kind of good that we got that out on the table. And I know it still freaks him out that I do it, and it is dangerous. And actually, Jack and I were having this conversation earlier. Like, our dads come because they don't want to miss the good bits and they don't want to miss the bad bits, right?
Yeah, sure, sure.
So
Uh,
anyway, I asked. I had to go to the Atlantic banquet that night, and I had bruised knees. That was all I had from it, was bruised knees. So I was very
that's
lucky.
unreal.
I know, those Lolas were so strong. That's my favorite car ever. Is that old Lola Champ car, because it was big and burly, and just like the best car. I mean, it kicked you in the butt. It was really hard to drive, but it was really cool
Awesome. That's I,
and safe.
I actually watched the crash. I was doing some research for it, and I watched it, and I just watched it once. I went, nope, turned it off. I'm not watching that again.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I
Absolutely
can
amazing. And there's
I can
the
watch
footage
it.
of you on the back of a golf cart, and you're just like, just waving. Everyone's
Uh,
cheering, again. Hiya.
yeah, I think I was a bit like shell
Yeah,
shocked, but I mean, I can watch it, and it's funny the way your brain works, right? Like, I'm really interested in all things mental, because I can watch it without any emotion at all. Like, it wasn't my fault, so you can kind of be like, okay, it was just a freak thing. You just as likely to get hit by a bus or whatever.
sure.
Um, it wasn't the team's fault, right? Because they didn't do anything wrong. It was a component failure. So it was just one of those things that you can kind of put in a box and put to bed. So literally no emotion whatsoever. Very matter of fact. However, like when I think about my dad and I think about how he felt about it, then I still choke up now, 15 years later or whatever it is. So it's just really strange how we're wired as well as drivers to like take on risks and all the things that we can be super strong and very thick-skinned about, but then other things we're just big babies, really. I
Yeah,
guess.
sure. Just on that, it's interesting because I had like Martin Donnelly on here, obviously who had a huge shunt in 1990, and everyone knows him for that.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing. He said he looks at it and he goes, "Well, that's me lying on the tarmac and I'm hurt, but
Yeah.
it happened. It's no one's fault. So get on with it." And I think people like us, non-racers, are just like, really?
I
So
know it's difficult to comprehend. But
yeah,
even when somebody else, like when you tell that story about Martin, I'm like, wow, how does he think that? But I had the same experience. So I think that your brain
yeah.
just like severs it somehow, from your emotion. It's bizarre.
How odd, very odd. But obviously, we're very, very glad it all ended up okay. Um,
Not as
but
glad as
obviously,
I am.
well, goes without saying for sure. Yeah, definitely. One person on this chat is more grateful than the other. Yeah, cool. Let's come to this year's Indy very shortly. I mean, you mentioned about you've seen some good success in MC. You've won races and driven some very cool cars. Have to talk about the Delta Wing because when it came out, half the people in motorsport were like, "What on earth is that?" And the other half were like, "That is awesome. This is a game changer." I mean, how did it all come about? Because it's a brilliant looking thing, I think.
So it was one of those things. Like it was called by Al Spire, who was the head of Bridgestone North America, and obviously in IndyCar we raced on Bridgestone tires. And he said, "Katherine, I've got a project that you might be interested in. I've spoken to Dom Panos." Okay, so both of these guys, Al Spire, amazing human, somebody who I very much looked up to. Like knew a lot about racing, but just generally like a super good guy. And then Dom Panos, who I didn't know at that time, but was lucky to be introduced to. Like he ran ALMS, which is now IMSA, if you like, when it merged with Grandam. But he was such an interesting guy. Like he had such a passion for racing and cars, and obviously Panos racing cars, and he also had decided that he was going to invest in the Delta Wing, and so he invented the patch too. That's another thing I was going to say. So he chain smoked, gosh, I don't know, 40-60 a day or something. Had invented his Panos Pharmaceuticals company in Ireland, had invented the giving up smoking patch, but he couldn't use it for some reason or didn't want to, or I don't really know the ins and outs. He was one of the coolest humans I ever got the honor of meeting, and I miss him very much. I used to go in his office. I used to come out stinking of cigarettes. But his stories and his advice and his friendship and his support over the years, like, literally means the world to me. There's a few people in racing, like I was telling you, Jim Griffith and Poltar and Kevin Kalkoven and Dr. Panos is definitely right up there as well. Like, just an amazing individual who had such vision, and one of those visions was the Delta Wing. And at the beginning, everybody was like, "Oh goodness, why are you driving that?" Like, well, firstly, it was a job, right, coming out of IndyCar, and it was a way to get into sports car racing. It was, driving for Don, which was very cool, and it was a development project, and it was just something really cool and new and interesting, and I was somewhat embarrassed by it in the beginning, a little bit, I would say, but by the time the project ended, I look back on those years now super fondly. I was lucky that we got to work with Dave Price as well, another legend.
Very sadly, not recently,
Yeah, very sadly. I feel very grateful for the whole experience, honestly, and I learned a lot from it. We legitimately led Daytona the last year of its existence, and
wow.
we developed it from a car that broke down quite a lot and didn't really have any potential, to in the latter year or 2 years, like we were super competitive with the other P1 cars at the time. So it was interesting. It drove like an Indy car. It had two really skinny front tires, but they were heavy. I mean, like when I say it drove like an Indy car, it really did. It got all of the downforce that it had from underneath the car and the ground effects that it created.
Yeah,
So I learned a lot about that. Yeah, it was like pointy like the Batmobile. It was just interesting. You know, what we test on track ends up in everybody's road cars, right? Like there's reasons for racing for manufacturers, and those reasons are to sell cars and to develop cars predominantly. And so when we're testing technology, that technology is then applied to everyday road cars if it's deemed successful and durable and all the things, right? So we're kind of at the forefront of that. And the Delta Wing was no different. They're called prototypes for a reason. Like they've been designed to be the best at what they are. Like look at the GTP class this year with all the regen and everything that they have, and just like the amount of really clever people that have looked at this new class and made some astonishing things. Like it's really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's great because a lot of people sort of look at something like the Delta Wing and go, "Oh, that looks good," and it's a bit different, but on track, and they'll judge it on the results and things. It's like, well, that's not. I mean, obviously, it's nice to win. Obviously, you want to win, you want to do as well as you can, you want to have success, but it's not sort of the be-all and end-all in some cases, which was, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was for us. Like, we wanted to win. That's the reason that we did it. We wanted to prove that we could. So, yes. But it was like Marmite. I always said it's like Marmite. You either loved it or you hated it. People had a very strong opinion about the Delta Wing, and it wasn't. Nobody would ever, like, walk past it and just be like, yeah, it's another race car, right? Everybody had an opinion.
Yeah, everyone sort of, exactly. I mean, even if they weren't that opinionated, that opinion came out to the fore. The Delta Wing. Just for the record, I do like Marmite and I do like the Delta Wing. So I like.
Same.
Yeah, see, the proper people do. I didn't say that. Incorrect. But just very quickly, I mean, in terms of the results, it did seem to do a bit better on the road courses rather than street courses or the banking and things like that. Perhaps understandable, or is it just a coincidence?
Yeah, it did. Because of the ground effects, the smoother the surface, the lower we could run it, the more downforce that we could get. There was a lot of reasons, really, but I mean, it did relatively well at different places. Anywhere that needed a lot of downforce, like a Mosport, it would be good at because you can carry a bunch of speed. And I'm not actually sure, like on numbers, what kind of downforce levels it created, but I know that it was a lot, and that thing braked really well. Brake? I don't know. But it would do everybody under braking. It would be
awesome. Just seen a comment here from Mr. Kevin Whitewood. He runs a British touring car chat group on Facebook. He says, I remember Katherine from the Super One days back in the day. I think it was around 97, 98, 99.
He's aging himself too now.
Yeah, Kev, come on, Kev.
Do you know what? I often joke that I would love to go back to those days, because if you think about it, okay, everybody thinks that their era was the best era. I swear our era was the best era. Look at it. We had like Anthony Davidson, Jamie Green, Jenson Button, Lewis, like all the really good drivers from back then. Like it was tough, but it was also a lot of fun, and it was just pure racing, and I miss it. I loved it. I wish you could recreate it, but you can't. I don't think you can as an adult, unfortunately. But if any of my cohorts from back in the day want to start another like TKM series or something like that, we'll do Formula A again, and we'll all go race each other at Wombwell and Blackbush and all the places. It would be amazing. Although I don't think anybody's left in England now, are they? A lot of them have kind of gone their own separate ways.
Gone globe trotting. He said Jimmy Patton was a top karter. There you go, Jimmy Patton. He's also said that Kevin said that I'm older than you, Katherine. A lot older. Thanks, Kev. We appreciate that. We're the same age, but anyway, fine. Just very quickly, no, it's very cool about the Delta win. Love that. Again, looking at the time. You moved to like Mayor Shank Racing, or Michael Shank Racing at the time. Obviously, they've done very well, and all very good stuff. Where were we? I just want to talk about 2018. That was a good season, wasn't it? Because apart from that near miss with Carl Masson at Daytona, I do remember that. That must have been a lively little incident. But you were back in the that was in the Acura, wasn't it? On that in 2018, and you had got wins. What was it? You had excuse me, I'm just checking the notes here. You had wins at Detroit. You've done very well there, and you won at Laguna Seca and stuff like that. I mean, that was a cool year.
Yeah, actually, the Maya Shank years were great. Firstly, because it was a development project. It almost didn't happen for me as well. So what happened was, I went testing in Sebring with my Acura teammates. So there was Oz Negri, there was Jeff Siegel, there was Andy Lally, me, and I crashed the car pretty early on coming out turn 5. Not once, but twice. So I would get in the TC, and I'd never driven a GT car before. So I hadn't ever experienced ABS, the same traction control systems that they use or anything like that. And I don't know, it was brand new, right? The car was brand new, and it would be in the TC, and then all of a sudden it would break through the TC, and it would spin up the tires, and it put me in the wall. And I didn't do it once, I did it twice. Okay, they weren't bad crashes, it was just front end, but it was bad enough for Acura to be like, what are we doing? Should we have Katherine? This is ridiculous. We need to develop the car, not like spend all the time fixing it.
Sure.
And I was very fortunate to have the teammates that I did, and having driven the car, they were like, listen, it's not on Katherine, it's you're keeping her, you can't get rid of her now, like this isn't fair, this is good, give it a chance kind of thing. And so I will forever be grateful to especially Andy and Oz for really kind of digging in and sticking up for me and being like, if she goes, we go, basically. They were great, and it taught me a lot about what a good teammate is, like to always have each other's backs and to really, do all the right things. And Andy actually took everything that I now know about driving a GT car, because how many Daytonas has he won? Like, I don't know, 112 or something stupid. Like he's won a bunch. He's been doing it for like 300 years, let's be honest. And just the different techniques about being in the ABS, like being on ABS threshold, like how to use the TC properly, like all the things that you don't know coming from a downforce car. And it took me a few races to get into it, but when we did, and then he and Jeff were really the ones leading the way in the development at the start, and they did a great job. And then after a few races, I was better equipped to kind of dig in and help as well. And the whole team were phenomenal. We did a really good job together. We had some success that year. We won Watkins Glen that year. And then the following year with Alvaro, we won a bunch of races and got poles and like really had an even better year. And it was amazing. It's what it should be. Like, it's what you want it to be every season. You're not winning it because of BOP. You're winning it because you're going out there and you're fighting with the other, the Ferraris and the Porsches and the Lambos of the world, and you're like legit there every race. And it was a great experience. And Alvaro was a brilliant teammate as well. I think there's a lot to be said for that. The teams where you really get on with your teammate and your team members, and everybody's pulling in the right direction. There's no politics, there's no BS, there's no, like, you got one goal and you support each other, and there's so much to be said for how much success that breeds, honestly. And so I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity, and I felt like it was part of one big family. And I did with Acura as well, and I'm obviously back with HPD and Acura this year, and so they know what I'm capable of. There's no question marks about, oh, is she as good as so and so, or it's just a nice feeling.
Yeah, that's good, and it's amazing how many racers say that. So the best times are when when the team's cohesive and you all get on well and it's all good and everyone's happy, rather than any, not infighting, but you know what I mean, any sort of disagreement. Very quickly, there's a question earlier on from Oliver Taylor. Evening, Ollie. He said, just mentioning about the IMSA's BOP. He says there's so many frustrated people being very vocal online about IMSA's BOP. He says, are they genuine frustrations, or is it mainly just coming from upset fans of the teams that aren't winning? He did use another
Ollie,
word.
you get me in trouble being so political. So I'm always
Disclaimer.
honest for people, which gets me in trouble. I think they were genuine concerns. So
Sure.
I think I would not want that job in IMSA for all the tea in China, right? Like, there's no way you can get me to do that job, because nobody's happy. Even when you're winning, you're not happy. Is there discrepancies? Absolutely there are. Like, you can see it if you're not blind, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
how do they do it? Like, it's really tough because teams mess around so much and they sandbag so much that you can't blame IMSA for doing some of the things that they do, because they're not given the right information. Take Daytona, take the raw test. There's a bunch of people out there sandbagging, and then they turn it up for the race or do whatever it is that they do. Like, IMSA don't know what's going on. They don't know up and down. All they can do is look at the data that they have and come to the best conclusion that they came to. And sometimes they're wrong, right? Sometimes I crash. Sometimes the team don't give me a great race car. Sometimes everybody doesn't do the absolute most perfect thing they can always do at the time. So did they get it wrong for Porsche at the beginning of the year? Probably so. Have they corrected it? Absolutely. The Mercedes always seems strong. It's you're never going to be with what they're, unless you're the one at the front and you feel like it's justified and it's legitimate, or your Mercedes, because they seem to always have a good BOP. I don't know why lines, but in defense, like, it's not an easy job because they go on the numbers. If it was somebody, like, everybody thinks they could do that job better too. I'm like, okay, let me add it. I will give you a BOP setting for everybody, because I can kind of say, okay, well, the Aston's really strong here and the Mercedes is really strong there. The Lambo's good here. The Acura's good there. Like, the Acura's really good at turning the tires on, and in damp conditions we're phenomenal, but you shouldn't BOP us on that, right? That's just something that manufacturer has done better than the other manufacturers. Like last year with the Porsche, the tire regulations that we had, where we had to run a certain minimum pressure and a certain camber and things, it hurt us more than it hurt other cars. Those cars just did it better, whereas the Porsche was really strong in other areas. So it's 6 1/2 dozen of the other. And no, they don't get it right all the time, but I don't think that it would be humanly possible to get it right all the time with the information that's provided. How's that for a politically correct but still honest answer?
The comment has just come in. Great answer. It's absolutely spot on. It's true, isn't it? I mean, you know better than anyone that, as I say, it's a living, breathing thing, and teams mess around with stuff, and you can't get it right every time, and that's the way it is. It's just life in general, isn't it? You can't get it right every time.
Yeah.
Right. One thing I want to say, 2020, you did the Daytona 500 in the Lamborghini. Coolest livery of the year. Absolutely brilliant. I loved it. Yeah, love that. Cartoon graphics. Folks, if you haven't seen it, Google it. It's brilliant. Right, just 2 things I want to touch on before we wrap up, because we've gone over the hour and we're going to keep you too long.
It's okay. I'm still driving because I got lost earlier, so I still have time.
Okay, cool. Right. Very quickly, you're alongside Sheena Monk this year. She's come over. She's done all the Lamborghini trophy and stuff. She's done loads of Insta things as well. It's going pretty well, isn't it? And again, it's another cool looking car, which helps.
It is. It's great. And if you can get the jingle out of your head, 877 cash now, then you're a better man than I am. So Sheena, I coached in 2017. She did one Lamborghini race at the World Finals. And then I coached her the following season in Super Trofeo. And she showed great potential back then for having done absolutely nothing before that. Like, no go-karting. She'd literally done like a few track days or something. So she's
Really?
brand spanking new. Yeah, which is good in a way because you got blank canvas. She's also incredibly smart. So she learns and she listens and she does all the things that you would want when you're coaching somebody. So she did another year in Trofeo, I think, and then did some GT4 stuff. I was doing other GT3 stuff. My dad, who I respect the opinion of greatly, and who analyzes everything with a magnifying glass, and gives me lap times and all sorts. Like, he knows everything about everybody in racing, and literally, you know, the B pillar reports that we get. I got nothing on my dad. Let me just say, my dad's like, yeah, but did you see the split times? Daddy, how did you get it? So anyway, my dad kept telling me, you know, Sheena's got real potential. She could be really good. She's obviously learning and she's new. She hasn't had much testing, but she has the potential to be really good. And I was like, yeah, okay, but it's a big step for her. You know, like, let's give her some time. She'll come onto it. And I have no doubt that she will, because she is smart. And then she comes to Daytona, and I'm expecting it to be a process, right? I'm expecting her to get up to speed slowly, not be ultimately on the lap time that everybody's on. Basically, I've got this preconceived idea, having seen a lot of gentleman drivers do it, like how they do it. They crash, they bring it back down, they do all these different things. So in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, in a year's time, she's going to be, by the end of the year, she's going to be brilliant. Is she ready? Yeah, she's absolutely ready to go and do this, but there are going to be some good times and some bad times. She's blown everybody away with her performance this year. She's done a really, really good job for having been in the car before. And you look at, okay, Sebring for us was a disaster because she got T-boned. Mark got taken out by one of the Porsches. Like, we never got going at Sebring. Like, we were limping around for the whole 12 hours. So it wasn't great. But we go to Long Beach, and it's just Sheena and I, and we drive very similarly. I don't think it's a factor from me teaching her. I think it's just like a natural thing. Anyway, we go to Long Beach, and she's done sim work, and I've given her notes, and we've watched video, we've done all the things. And she's literally 6/10 off me, having never driven a street course before. Bearing in mind, I think I'm pretty good on street courses. And
well, you've won at Detroit and Long Beach, and
Detroit and Long Beach. I don't know. It's just they're my thing. I love it. And we got fastest lap this year at Long Beach. Anyway,
street circuits are the best. Like, I've said this for years. They're the best.
Right. Anyway. She's like right there, and we're all amazed at what a phenomenal job she's doing. Are there things that she needs to learn and program her brain? Absolutely. But it's like when I first drove the GT car, right? There's a lot to learn, and you have to program your subconscious to do the things so that you're not consciously thinking of them. For example, at the start, I told her, okay, you won't be 2x2, you'll be going single file by the time we get around because of the prototypes and everything else. Like, don't make it too wide going into the last corner. And she's so nervous about doing a good start that she goes too wide into the last corner. She's like, I'm really sorry. So there's like a whole bunch of things that you have to program your brain, just like a computer, I guess. But she is going to be awesome. I have every faith in her, and I've really, really, really enjoyed working with her, and I hope that her steep climb upward continues, because I think that she's got a lot of potential.
Excellent. Love to hear that. I mean, because she's almost like come out of nowhere, isn't she? And she's done very, very well. And yeah, it's just fantastic. Hopefully, like a long-term thing, you guys racing together. Yeah, just looking at the time very quickly. I have to come back full circle. Anyone who watches these knows that I shoehorn the Indy 500 in as much as I can, because I love it. Month of May starts tomorrow. I'm wetting myself with excitement because I love it. Not literally, folks, just in case you're wondering. You've got to be absolutely buzzing for it. I mean, do you prepare differently for the Indy 500 or to any other
Well,
race? Because I mean, I have been once, and as a fan, I cried when I got there because I was like, I've wanted to be there for so long, and it's so amazing, and I love it.
it's very good.
Do you prepare differently for everything that comes with it, or is it just a
Yeah,
case of go and enjoy it?
no. I'm lucky actually that I have prepared differently this year because we had a test in Texas. I've had sim work. I've been at the shop working with the engineers. We tested at the open test. So there's been PR announcements. There's been TV stuff. 100 Days to Indy. You should all watch it if you get it in England. I don't know,
I'm gonna
but
find
you
it.
probably
Yeah.
get it online somehow. There's a whole bunch that's gone into this year's 500 that is designed to make us as prepared as possible. And it's been honestly a full-time job, but it's also been a full-time job with IMSA. So I've been busy. So, like, I go to California and then next week to do some PR stuff. I fly back to California, and then I get a red eye to Indy, and then we're at Indy for a week, and then we do the PR stuff the following week before the race, and then the parade and everything else. And it's a lot, but it's also awesome, right? Like,
Yeah.
there are a few races, taking nothing away from all the other races, because all races are important.
Of course. Of course.
Everybody gets a trophy. But some races evoke emotion. Indy is the biggest sporting event in the world, right, in terms of attendance.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, well, you've been there, so you know firsthand the buzz that it creates, the atmosphere. I mean, it has a life of its own, right?
And it
You
feels
drive in, you
different.
get goosebumps. It feels different. You know,
Yeah.
Daytona has a feeling about it as well. Le Mans, Bathurst, like there are some Watkins Glen, you know, there are some just I expect that some of them are different for everybody. You know, I know a lot of people like BIR and that evokes emotion for them. But it's I guess the desire to do well there is so intense.
Yeah.
It's undescribable, honestly.
Oh, I'm so glad you said all that because I went for Carb Day on Friday. We made the decision a week, 3 days before 2 days before we flew out. We went to Carb Day, and Carb Day is like race day. It's got that atmosphere. Race day, it's just off the chart. It's the greatest spectacle in racing, and you think, oh well, that's America blowing it up or whatever. It really, really, really is. It's absolutely unreal, isn't it? There's just a buzz about it, and
Yeah, you can't describe it. It's got its own life. Like the people in the stands, it's an energy, it's an aura, it comes to life. It's just, if you haven't experienced it, you should, because then you'll understand it. But me just saying that, you probably think I'm a little bit cuckoo.
no, I'm completely on board with it. Even the people that think it's just going around turning left 4 times for 2 hours, all that. Even if they go and do it, spend the money, go and enjoy yourself, go and spend too much money on the merchandise. Do it all because it is amazing and it's a fantastic race, and yeah, and it's even better when Katherine Legge wins it. No, it's oh, that'd be fantastic. But on that, I mean, do you have any sort of hopes, expectations, anything like that going into it, or is it just a case of go and see how it falls?
Suck it and see. No, I think it depends how the cars are, right? Like, if we can get the cars sorted out, then I don't see any reason why we won't have as much chance as anybody else.
Yeah.
I personally need to up my game in the auxiliary things. So pit stops. You know, I'm still a bit rusty coming in, going out. Timing wise, for timing overtakes and getting a run on people, still a bit rusty. I have a week of testing before the qualifying weekend, so hopefully I'll knock that off and I'll be fine come the race. But the actual driving, I think it's whoever has the best car, whoever is the smartest. it's like the best car, the best like strategy and teamwork, and whoever's smartest and times it right, like that's what's going to win the 500. And there's nothing to say that that can't be us if we can get everything sorted out in time. We've got just as much chance as anybody else.
Yeah, of course. And you mentioned about being smart on the timing. Obviously, that's what won it for Marcus Ericsson last year. Well, that and Scott Dixon's unfortunate error because he should have walked it. But you've got to capitalise when it happens because Marcus Ericsson was just there hovering, and then he pounced and he won. It was fantastic. Right, so and obviously wish you all the very best for the Indy 500. We're going to be cheering you on. Obviously, we want the Brits to do well, of course.
There you go.
And he's doing.
But first,
Right.
Laguna. I've got to go to Laguna and win that one first. Got to go to Laguna and win that one first, and then we'll go to Indy and win that one.
I mean, that's not a bad calendar to have, is it? Oh, I'm going to go to Laguna Seca and Indy 500. Yeah, it's all right. No, good stuff.
I'm pretty lucky. Yeah.
That's very cool. Very, very cool. Right. I know you got to shoot off very shortly. Let's say hello to the guys at Go Bobby UK who have tuned in. Hello, 100% pure energy at the Indy 500. Absolutely. And John Kane has just come in. John, we're going to pop off in a minute. But we always try and wind down. I mean, there's loads more we could have spoken about, and I've got notes galore here, but I know we're against the clock and we've already run over. But very quickly, we always end up with some fun questions that we like to have a chat. We ask them to the same, we ask the same questions at the end. Did you have a favourite driver growing up?
I did. Ayrton Senna was my absolute hero. I saw him drive at the wet at Donington and just was blown away. Nigel Mansell because he was British. And then after that, there you go. See, it's there, probably.
Just very quick, I don't know if you can see up there. There's my little picture of Ayrton up there. And very quickly, just behind the camera here, I won this in a competition that was very exciting. Signed Nigel Mansell steering wheel for the car I don't have. So anyway, yeah, awesome. Very pleased. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, two fantastic drivers, which is brilliant. And apart from Sheila, obviously, do you have one now? Favorite driver?
There's a lot of people that I look up to, honestly. I don't know that there's one that stands out.
A few. We'll just say a few. It's fine.
Yeah, a few. Yeah, there's a few. I don't know. There's a lot of very good drivers out there. I think they have to be the whole package to make the list.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not going to push her on that one. That's fine. Have you got a favourite car that you've ever raced and a favourite circuit to race on?
Yes and yes. Favorite car is the Lola Champ car because of all the reasons I said. Big, burly, like save, awesome, kicked you in the butt. Like you felt like a hero driving it. And favorite racetrack is probably still Road America. And I know that sounds bonkers because I had a big crash there, but I love it. It's elevation, fast corners, slow corners, like it's mega. I love it.
Yeah, fantastic. One that I always like to watch racing on from was obviously Road America and Road Atlanta. That looked bonkers as well, and you've had some success there as well. Very, very cool. Okay, two more questions. The last one's an impossible one, but anyway. Is there any series that you would love to have had a real go at, whether it be, I don't know, Aussie supercars or more time in the DTM or F1, or is there anything that you think, I'd love to have a go at that?
Yeah,
because you've driven most things.
I have. My dream was always Formula One, and I don't, I was kind of hoping for that up until way past. I probably should have been hoping for that, but I still want to drive at Bathurst in a V8. I do. That's like a bucket list thing for me. I don't know whether I'll ever get the opportunity. I probably should put some effort into doing it if I want to get the opportunity. And I would love to do some more NASCAR races. I had such a blast doing NASCAR before, so there's a whole bunch of things that I want to do, but life gets in the way,
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and the NASCAR thing is something I'd love to have touched on because it's just awesome and brilliant, but maybe another time. Right, final question. This is the impossible one. You've raced against a load of drivers, many, many, many brilliant drivers. I've got a big list here, and I'm not going to name them all, but you've raced against, in various series, you've raced against guys, like AJ Allmendinger, and you've raced against Mike Rockenfeller and Gary Paffett and these guys in DTM. You've raced against Paul Tracy, Sebastian Bourdais, Will Power. We love Will. Will's brilliant. Roberto Moreno, Pagenaud, Newgarden, Conor Daly, Coulthard. You've raced against Jordan Lacey, apparently. Tyler Reddick, Chase Briscoe, Ross Chastain, Scott Dixon, Castro Neves, Conway Pruitt, Dario Franchitti, Lando Norris as well in a race. And Tony Kanaan, who's retired. So many brilliant drivers you've raced against. I mean, is there any one of those that you've raced against that you think they're just that little bit better or
Special.
just someone? Yeah.
Yeah, different times for sure. Like, there's times that, let me think. Like a lot of them in prototype, I have a lot of time and respect for. Like there's some really special guys driving in the P cars. There's some not so special ones too. But I think it would be wrong of me to like single out some because I know that I've forgotten others and it wouldn't be fair. But like the likes of Anthony Davidson and I don't know, like there are so many really, really awesome drivers that it would be, Albuquerque went through a period of time where he could do no wrong and just like literally won everything. Alvaro, who was my teammate, was the same way. Like sorry dude, in your big truck, I know I went the wrong way. Like there's just been some drivers at certain times that are unstoppable and unbeatable, and I think a lot of the really good ones have had those periods in their career. Philippe Nasser, another one, like super good driver. But there are also the guys that show you respect on the racetrack. The ones that coexist with the other classes of cars that are just kind of like superior mentally, I think, to the ones that will stove it down the inside. And I've raced against Montoya, and Montoya's one of those guys, you see him coming and you're like, oh great, now I have to throw a block because it's Montoya, and if I don't then he's going to take me out. Like, come on, man. But yeah, he is one of the best drivers that ever lived, and people forget what he did, how awesome he was in F1. So anyway, there's a lot of really, really good drivers, and I've been very fortunate to have raced against some of the best in my career. And I was teammates with AJ, and AJ's like a rock star in NASCAR. So
he's the man. Yeah,
it's been cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I must admit, that is a question more for the retired racers that I speak to. It's very unfair to ask when you're still active, especially when you're going to bump into some of them in a few weeks. Yeah.
Why did you mention me?
Yeah. Jack Harvey's going to be screaming at this guy, going, "What are you doing, woman? Keep it with the Brits."
I haven't raced against Jack yet, have I? I don't think I've raced Jack yet.
I don't think you have, actually. No.
No, there you go, see? He can't be feeling bad.
There's no ammunition for him whatsoever yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's a guy I want to try and get hold of, but it's like trying to punch fog, trying to get hold of him. But anyway.
You should email or message the PR person for the team, whose name is Kathy Lauterbach, and she is amazing. She's like a rock star, and she will get you all squared away.
Awesome. We get Jack. I want to get Bobby. I need to get Bobby on as well. Anyway, all for a different day. Yeah. After telling him I've spoken to all the guys he used to race against back in the 80s, I've had like Ari Lyndike, Danny Sullivan on here. So I was like, come on, don't let them outdo you.
His stories are brilliant, by the way. Like, you learn so much from people like Bobby, because they had it so differently, so much harder in a lot of ways, and just listening to the incredible stories and what they went through to do what they did is pretty special. Like, I feel very very honoured to be able to drive for such a cool individual.
Yeah,
Well,
and
lots of cool individuals, actually. I mean, like, everybody who owns that team is amazing. If you think about it, Lanigan, superstar, like, business savant. And then you got David Letterman, obviously, who, like, is a hero over here, too. So it's like, what a cool team to race for when you sit back and think about it. And when I was racing with Kevin, I met some really, really interesting, really cool people as well. And so I've been really lucky. Oh, temperature.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very cool. Oh, we've lost picture. Crikey.
Yeah, my phone got hot again, so now's probably a good time. I'm going past the stinky chicken farm just before home.
Oh, lovely. Happy days. But no, in all seriousness, you know, like the Rahal name, it's huge in the States in IndyCar, and fantastic team to be racing for. I mean, just very quickly, I mentioned we spoke with Alonso Jr. and Lyondike and Sullivan, and they were talking about going 220 miles an hour in those cars, and you think, with the safety wasn't what it was, and incredible era of racing. Fair play to them. Yeah.
I agree.
Right, we said it'd be an hour. It's been an hour and 26 minutes. So, and you're still driving. So,
I'm just pulling up now, so it's perfect timing.
There you go, spot on. Couldn't have timed it any better. We're going to wrap it up because obviously you've got other things to do. But thank you very, very much for coming on and having a chat. I appreciate it, especially as you're driving and picking up the dog and all that other kind of stuff. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you coming on.
Welcome. Lovely talking to you. Thank you. And thank you for all the questions and people watching.
That's all right. So yes, thank you to everyone. Also, yes, we'll all be rooting for you. Absolutely, we will. So yeah, obviously, all the very best for the rest of the IMSA season and all that, and of course, all the best of luck for the Indy 500. I'm very excited, so I can't imagine how you'll feel. But yeah, we'll have lots of fans from the UK getting right behind you. So wish you all the best for it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great stuff. Right, thank you very much, guys, and thank you, Katherine, and we'll see you all very, very soon. Au revoir.